Hi there. Welcome to a video about constants in JavaScript. I am your host and graduate, Pippin Bar. This subject is going to be pretty quick. It's not a complicated idea. It's just a new piece of syntax that exists in JavaScript ES6 that I want us to know about. It's not going to be something where I feel like we absolutely must use it the way I'm going to talk about here, but it's an important thing to know what it is. Okay? So, on to the magical world of constants. What is a constant? Let's head over to Atom. So we know that when we want to store a value for use in our program, we create a variable, right? So I might create a variable called pi, and I might put in 3.1415, whatever, 9, etc. And that will store this number, 3.14159, inside a variable called pi. And then I can use that variable elsewhere in my program, and I can change its value by assigning new values into it as necessary. And that's fine. That is how variables work, as you already know. However, and this is one of those cases, we do have variables in our programs that we never want to change. Like pi, for example. The value of pi, which is a mathematical constant, should never change. Obviously, I can promise never to change pi here. I can just go about my program and make sure I don't. But programming languages, or at least many of them, have a way to guarantee that I won't change pi. And that is with this keyword called const. So rather than write let here, which allows me to declare an ordinary variable that can change, I write const, C-O-N-S-T. You can see that it highlights in the same kind of a way. It goes purple because it's a special word. The other thing that I would do in this situation is I would change the way that I write pi here. With variables, we know that we use camel case, so we start with a lowercase letter and then capitalize subsequent words. When we create a constant, we write it in all capitals, P-I, like that, both caps. And that's a way that we can signal to ourselves throughout the program that we have a constant value in that and that we cannot change it. And when I say that we cannot change it, what I mean is that if on the next line of my program, I try to change the value of pi to 100, patently ridiculous, but you know, why not? If I run my server, obviously this program is not very amazing to look at. It doesn't do anything except declare a constant. If I go and look in over here in my console here, we get this type error here, right? As well as other bits and pieces you're already familiar with. We get uncaught type error assignment to constant variable, which feels like an oxymoron, but whatever. The thing is that your program will crash if you try and change a constant, and that's a good thing because what we wanted to do was guarantee over here that pi cannot change. So by declaring it as a constant, const, and also by changing the way that we write its name so it's visually identified as a constant, we are now guaranteeing that we cannot change pi in this program. Okay? And we can use any kind of value here as a constant. It's not that it has to be pi. For example, I love to learn is true. That's a Boolean, right? That's a constant. I can no longer ever change the fact that I love to learn. You can also see another feature of how we write these, which is that when we have multiple words, I love to learn, we put underscore characters in between them. That's just another typographical convention to make it easier to read. Const, my favorite programming language is JavaScript, obviously. A string, right? That works too. So constants can be any kind of value that you want. It's a little more complicated than that, in fact, and I've got some notes about that in the text notes. But for our purposes, you write the word const, you write the name of your constant in capital letters with words separated by underscores, and then you assign the value at the time that you create it, and then it can never change. Okay? And that's it. That's all that we need to know about const. So in the interest of just kind of using a const in context, let's write a small program that we will put constants into, right? So if I want a program, and I'm going to write this in P5.js lingo, so I'll create a canvas, I'm just going to write a small program that does, a little visual thing, just so that we can, see this live and not with kind of silly examples like I was giving there. So I'll set the background to black. Now that I've done that, I can go and look at it. There you go. There's my square. Wonderful. Let me close this so it looks a bit tidier. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a for loop starting at 0, going up to 10, up by 1 each time through, and I'm just going to draw some concentric circles. And to do that the easiest way, I'm going to also give them an alpha value, right? So when I say fill, and the first number is 255, that means I want to fill with white. The second number is the alpha value, which is between 0 and 255, so 50 means that it's quite transparent. Then I will draw my ellipse, and I'll draw it at the center of the canvas here, and I'll make it, so because I want to make this concentric, I can't put just any old number in here. I can't say 100, because then it's going to draw 10 circles that are exactly the same size. The easiest way to draw concentric circles is that I will take I, which is the number that goes up in the for loop, so it starts at 0, then goes 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 9, and I'll multiply it by 50, so that the first time it's going to be 0, second time when I is 1 it's going to be 50, then 100, then 150. So the size of these circles is going to get bigger as the program goes through the for loop, and that's it. I'll pop at the end of that. So this is a simple concentric circle drawing program, assuming that it works, which it does. Looks good. Looks really good. Again, as always, kind of overly impressed by these things. I think that looks quite beautiful. So we know as diligent programmers that it's not great to have quite so many of these hard-coded numbers, right? But we do need to realize that there's different kinds of issues, right? So the fact that my canvas is 500, 500, I don't see that as such a big deal. We set it once at the top of the program. It's not really confusing. We could create variables for that at the top if we wanted to. But there are some problematic hard-coded numbers, like this 10. That's the number of circles, but it's not really obvious just by seeing the number 10 there. So I think that would be a thing where we would want to convert that to a variable, right? So we would write let num circles is 10, and I would replace that 10 with my variable. Just makes it more readable immediately, right? Now we know that the loop is for the number of circles. We could also think about the circle alpha here. That was 50, so let circle alpha is 50. Then we've got that in a variable, so that's also named. It's a bit clearer what's going on. And this 50 also makes sense to turn into a variable. So I'll call that circle size increase, because that's how much each circle increases in size per loop. So let circle size increase, and I believe, what was that? That was 50. Okay. So that's a thing that we do as programmers, right? We look through our program, we find numbers that make our program unclear, and we convert them into variables. And so we have the same program, but it's more legible now. However, if we know for a fact that our program is always going to draw 10 circles, for example, so when we have num circles here, it's 10 now, and it will always be 10. We have no plans to change that. Then what we should do is make that into a constant. So we would say const, and we would convert this to say num circles in all capitals with the underscore, num circles. Now again, that doesn't really change the program in terms of how it executes, right? It looks the same. But this is good programming practice to get in the habit of. If you've got a number or any kind of variable whose value you will never change, you might as well make it a constant. That's just a good thing to do. And even though right now in this program we don't change circle alpha and we don't change circle size increase, they strike me as things that we might want to change. So I'm going to leave them as variables. For example, we could map them, right? The classic thing of mapping them to the mouse position. So we could map circle alpha to the x position of the mouse, which we know is between 0 and the width, and we could put that to be between 10 and 100. So as the mouse moves on the screen, the circle alpha goes up and down, and we could do the same thing for the size increase. We could map mouse y in this case, which is between 0 and the height, and we could map that to the same range. So we can make the circle increment bigger or smaller as we move the mouse around. And so here is a case where these things being variables is useful, right? So now I've got this kind of, I can brighten and darken my circles, and make them more Looney Tuneser and less Looney Tuneser. But num circles, which I'm not ever changing in this program and have no plans to, is a constant. So that way I can't accidentally change it. And that is literally what the point of constants is. It's not more complicated than that. It's just if you have something that you're not going to change, make it a constant. Simple as pie. Simple as you could possibly want. So that's it. That's the end of this video about constants. Use them when you have values that will never change.